But I think, hi Kushiapa, I think we're ready to start actually. Kushiapa, it's so nice to have you here. Thank you so much for making time.
Shaheen, hi. Iti, hi. What is this? Chalpuri.
Oh, I'm going to change my name. I'm sorry. I asked. Yeah, that's me, but it's Katerina.
Shaheen gives this glamorous picture of hers.
হ্যালো খুশি আপা, কেমন আছেন?
ভালো, কি খবর?
এই তো চলে যাচ্ছে।
So without, I don't think we need to wait much longer, and I'd like to spend as much time reading and talking as we can. So I'll quickly introduce Shaveena, and I'll explain how Sister Library works, how the circle functions. Shaveena Anam is, so she's been an organizer and a facilitator, and she's you're an Acumen associate. So she's an associate with the Acumen Fellowship, which has been running in Bangladesh for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, and she's been involved as a leadership coach as well in many different ways. And today she'll be guiding the reading of the work of Kamla Bhasin, who just passed away, and we have with us Kushi Kabir, who was her close friend and co-organizer. Like I can only wish for a friendship as deep and as active as theirs. So the way that the circle works is we will read selections that Shaveena chose. So she went through different books and selected. If you're not reading, of course, please mute yourselves. And if you want to read, just raise your hand, and then we'll call on you. You read as much as you want to, but try to finish the passage. And if the passage is too long, or like for some reason you can't finish it, it's okay. You can pass it on to the next person. And then Shaveena will guide the reading and stop at certain points and facilitate the discussion. So yeah, that's how it works. Some background on the Sister Library is that it's now a collaboration between the Goethe Institute, and we have Shoma Sharmin here, who's representative of that, and Her Story Foundation, and I'm the representative of that. And we actually are continuing a project that started by Akitami, who is a wonderful indigenous artist from India, and she started a physical sister library where she collects works by women and only by women, and then she also like makes zines, and there's a lot of activities. So it is a physical place. And when she came to Dhaka, we had a pop-up at the Goethe Library, and there was a Sphinx spot with lots of books that she brought 100 books with her. And hopefully when the Goethe Library opens for public use, they will have a pink spot, and there will be books, and you will be able to check books out and read them. If you're not already registered as a member, I'll share the link for registration in the chat, and then you can leave us your email, and that will give you like a membership into the Sister Library. So yeah, thank you all for coming. It's also a very special day. Shaveena, you can explain to everyone why. I don't want to, yeah, I'm passing it on. Shaveena, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kat. And সবাইকে আজকে আসার জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ. So as Kat mentioned, I work at Acumen Academy Bangladesh. It's focused on leadership development. Over the last couple of years, like COVID or Shoma especially, we've learned a few different ways of engaging online. One of the things we love doing is actually do a breathing exercise in the beginning so that we all get grounded and present. I know that many of you possibly have had a long day, many tabs open in your head, many other thoughts and distractions. So just follow my voice and just to help us get grounded. So if everybody can close your eyes and listen for my instructions. So it's just breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. And again, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out with the sound. And whenever you're comfortable, please open your eyes. So thank you again for coming and joining us here today to celebrate the life and work of Kamla Bhasin, feminist activist, social scientist, poet, author. Kamla Bhasin has been an integral part of the women's movement in India from the 1970s and was a really big believer of the South Asian identity. Today also is coincidentally the birthday of her beloved and brilliant daughter Mito Bhasin Malik, who unfortunately died in 2006. Today we'll be talking about her work, her texts. Before that, I was wondering if, just so everybody gets kind of acquainted with each other, would you put into the chat your name and the organization that you're working for? So just, you know, শুরু করতে পারি, Shaveena Academy. So hi Kat, hi Samara, hi Mahreen, hi Zaid. Hi Noshin, thank you so much everybody for being here. Kushikala, Noshin, Nazmi, Ines, now studying in London, joining us. Thank you so much for joining. Hello Raziapa. Sanzita, Jahanara, সবাইকে অনেক শুভেচ্ছা ও ধন্যবাদ আসার জন্য. So as Kat mentioned, we will be reading from a few different works of Kamla Bhasin, but we thought, and in fact it was Kushikala's great idea that we actually start with her own words. There was a poem, Because I'm a Girl, you might be familiar with it, that Kamla Bhasin got a lot of acclaim for. So ওটা দিয়ে আজকে আমরা শুরু করছি. Just go.
Because I'm a girl, I must study. A father asks his daughter, "Study? Why should you study? I have sons aplenty. Girl, why should you study?" The daughter tells her father, "Father, since you ask, let me tell you why I must study. Because I'm a girl, I must study. Long denied this right, I must study. For my dreams to take flight, I must study. Knowledge brings new light, I must study. For the battles I must fight, I must study. Because I'm a girl, I must study. To win independence, I must study. To avoid destitution, I must study. To fight frustration, I must study. To find inspiration, I must study. Because I'm a girl, I must study. To fight men's violence, I must study. To end my own silence, I must study. To challenge patriarchy, I must study. To demolish all hierarchy, I must study. Because I'm a girl, I must study. To mold a faith I can trust, I must study. To make laws that are just, I must study. To sweep centuries of dust, I must study. To challenge what I must study. Because I'm a girl, father, I must study. To know right from wrong, I must study. To find a voice that is strong, I must study. To write feminist songs, I must study. To make a world where girls belong, I must study. Because I'm a girl, I must study.
So incredibly inspiring and very emotional, and actually an important reminder of, for me at least, like the privilege and the responsibility I also have as a woman in this world. And before আমি কোনো সময় কামলাদির সাথে actually আমার কাজ করার কোনো সময় সুযোগ ছিল না, so I don't know if there's anybody here, but I wanted to invite any experiences that you might want to share about working with her, any specific memory you have, or even if you've just heard her speak, anything that you've learned from her, and anything that you're inspired by, and just wanted to open the floor যদি কেউ কিছু বলতে চায় ওনাকে নিয়ে. Khushi Khala, would you like to start us off?
Very, very difficult. Today, her ashes were, she's gone back to the elements from where she came. So it's her daughter's birthday, her daughter she loved. So a video was sent of her ashes being, put into the river, given back to Mother Earth. She was and I've known her since 78. And I think for me, I think even for, I see Shaheen is here also, Shaveena Anam. For all of us, she has been a lot of what I am today, I think. I mean, she says, I think we all share each other, each one of us. Anything any of you do impacts me, maybe what I do impacts you in some way. And if we've had a long journey together, like we've done many things and formed many things. I don't think I've traveled with anyone in so many conferences across the world as much as I have done with Kamla. So yeah, we've had lots of differences, and we do have a lot of ideological differences. But the best thing about Kamla was she always taught us to be open, that, no matter where your ideological or philosophical or whatever position is, and she had very strong positions herself, many of which I didn't agree with, but her thing was that you speak what you say, but you do learn to understand where the other person is coming from. And that she has given me. But my biggest thing of her is that she has a sense of humor that is incredible. We'd go to the most serious meetings and conferences and be together, giggling our hearts off like school kids. We'd but started many things together. I think for me, it was Kamla who paved the way for me to accept Pakistanis as my friends after the 71 Liberation War. It was her, in a very different way, trying to get, to accept people as people. And I think for Kamla, like a friend of ours said, she's the quintessential South Asian. The book she wrote is Beyond Borders and Boundaries. She didn't believe in these borders and boundaries. And I think she was first and foremost a feminist who gave. And her mantra, which she always says, is the power of love, not the love of power. We want, what is happening now in our countries is the love of power is taking over. We have to change it to the power of love. I mean, there's so many things she said all the time. And the other thing is that she was someone who could build relationships across generations. So when my daughter wrote a little thing for her in her Facebook, and like things she couldn't tell me, it was Kamla was a second mother. She said, I had two mothers. I was lucky that I had my own mother and I had Kamla. She used to call her Kamba because as a child she couldn't say Kamla Khala together, so it was Kamla. And remained Kamla. But just that, yes, she managed to bring through the South Asian courses, she did manage to bring South Asia together, generations, intergenerations together, talk about sexuality, which in a region like ours was something that you didn't talk about. Differences. I think one could just go on, but it's just that I think it was a very sudden cancer. She just discovered it on the 23rd or 4th of June. She was diagnosed. She just she didn't have very serious, she had a slight pain, which was not going away. So she decided to check up and just do a normal routine checkup, thinking it may be nothing at all. And it turned out to be an aggressive and a very violent form of cancer. And she had just 3 months since she knew. So, we'll miss her. And those who haven't met her will know her through all the different videos and books and songs. Her farewell, when they put her body into the crematorium and for the cremation, they were all singing the feminist songs that she wrote, the feminist slogans that she had taught us and chanted. So that was the most beautiful send-off that she would have wanted. And it was a sister who did the lighting the fire. It wasn't a brother. So that's what I think she would have wanted. So Kamla lived on. Just a few days before, when her cancer was really bad, we were having a memorial for a very close friend of ours who was also part of Sangat, the South Asian feminist network that Kamla created. Sunila Besekera from Sri Lanka, who I think has taught me in many ways a lot about the theories of the different kinds of feminist practices that exist and feminisms that exist. And so it was Sunila's anniversary of her death. And Kamla insisted, she was really ill then, but she insisted on talking and insisted that Sunila taught us the song Bread and Roses. Many of you who don't know Bread and Roses, it was the feminist anthem since the time of the suffragette movement or immediately after. So she said, you must have bread and roses. And she spoke and she said, she was strong as ever. And as Sunila lives on, and she spoke of Sunila in the present, I hope we can all talk of Kamla in the present. I'm sorry I've taken too much time. But as I said, she's a part of me and will be a part of me.
Thank you so much for sharing. For everybody else who's joined, maybe recently, Kushikala was just sharing her own experiences and little memories from knowing Kamla Di over the years. If anybody else would like to share, if not, we can move on to reading.
I know that Nabunita had spent some time with her in Parvati Baul's ashram. That was Nobunita's introduction to understanding Kamla. Nobunita, she never shared it with me, but, and I see the other hands, sorry. That's your.
জুবেদা কিছু বলতে চাচ্ছিলে?
আমি আমার একটা ছোট্ট introduction share করতে চাচ্ছি. That was when I was back in Jahangirnagar University. So what happened when I was in second year, one of my close friend, she was raped. So she was mentally broken, and we were trying to like support her. So I took her to my teacher, and my teacher that day shared a video of Kamla Bhasin, and that day she was explaining no one took anyone's respect in the girl's vagina, so you don't need to do any harm to yourself. So that day that woman actually inspired me too. So when I saw that today we are talking about her, I just couldn't resist myself. Yeah, and I'm happy to be able to share it now.
Thank you so much for sharing, Zubaida. This both difficult but inspiring story. Nobunita Popnikich, do you want to share?
Shaveena, you just shared the link, and I saw that it's about, you are reading from Kamladi's book, and I thought I would be joining, so I just joined, and then I started hearing what Kushiapa had to say. Maybe as I have not thought about what to share before, I'm not sure whether I will be saying the things so many things I want to share about Kamladi, because as Kushiapa said, I have been very, very lucky to spend I think 3 nights, 4 days, without any interruption, very closely with Kamladi at Parvati Di's ashram. Both women we all have admired for so long, and in the ashram in Shantiniketan, I got the opportunity to spend the time. It was, I joined BRAC, and everyone in BRAC, especially Abed Bhai, Tamara Appa, they thought I would have to meet Kamladi as soon as possible before I start working for the gender programming of BRAC. And Kamladi's calendar, as usual, was fully booked. She had one lecture after another all around India, and at a point she said that it will only be possible that if I can travel with her to Parvati Baul's ashram, to Shantiniketan. I think, anyone who get that opportunity, that no, I'm not meeting her in Delhi, or she's not coming to Dhaka, she's saying that I can give you uninterrupted 3 days of talk if you come to me and join me in Kolkata, and then we will travel together to Shantiniketan. I was skeptical, because the Kamladi I knew, she was no Kamladi to me before that. I knew she's Kamla Bhasin. I have heard her clips, speeches from YouTube. I have never met her. I won't say that I have read a lot of her writing even, and I thought 3 days of, I thought 3 days of, feminist talk, theoretical talk, day and night in an ashram. I was more looking forward to hearing actually Parvati Baul singing than, hearing, because I was expecting maybe it will be a training. I didn't know how Kamladi communicates. And I went to Kolkata, and she booked a cab. She already booked a cab, which would be driven by a woman driver, and she booked a cab from a company who runs cab in Kolkata with like 20 trained women drivers. So it was an all-women drive to Shantiniketan from Kolkata, and it was like golpo, hours. I forgot, maybe 3 hours, 2 hours. Our age gap is big, we are from, we were, we don't speak the same language, but it felt like the most heartiest adda. And I felt like I knew her for so long, and she knew exactly, what are the, issues, what she, I heard how Bangladesh's NGO, I have not only heard and learned from her about the feminist movement. I learned from the NGO movement in Bangladesh, because she is the contemporary of Abed Bhai, Zafrullah Bhai, Khushiapa, all of them actually, they were contemporaries. They grew up with the same dream. They saw each other grow, and she always spoke about Bangladesh, BRAC, Abed Bhai so dearly, Khushiapa, your mother, they were all, Shirin Appa, they were all, comrades to her. So I think, they were like a family, and I felt then, we have a family where we can communicate, we have a family ready by our predecessors, our elders, and that family we can connect to instantly. So that power she has given in, I have started, understanding Khushiapa through a different lens. I have known Khushiapa for so long. I have started seeing our NGO sector where I came to work, if through a different lens. I could see how Ganashastha Kendros, training women drivers in 80s changed everything, changed so many things, and how, our NGOs actually in many ways led the feminist movement, led the development movement. I could see so much theory, and I would finish. I said, Shaveena, that I won't be very precise maybe. I think the biggest thing from Kamla Di, I have learned from, what we need to do, what change we need to demand, I think are two things she understood and felt. I may be wrong, that's my understanding, felt very strongly about that women's care burden, that needs to be shared, that needs to be reduced, and women has to have the inheritance right, women has to have the property. So these two issues, I think she felt very, very strongly about. And I think, more and more I thought about it, I also feel that these two things, if we can sort these out through, because for sharing the care burden, you need to sort out so many century-old problems. If you can sort that out, if you can sort that out, if you can continue talking about that and bring solution to that and change the people's mind, change the community's mind towards that, that will bring a very big qualitative change to women's life. And another thing is, I think, the property rights. These two things, I think Kamla Di felt very, very strongly about. And I also, and Kamla Di, so that we have sang together, we have spoke together, and I'm, I think I have been very fortunate to spend those days with Kamla Di, and I would love to believe that she always would have a special place in my heart, as she would have in millions of hearts. And I would love to believe that I have had a special place in her heart as well. That's her power as well, that she could make us all feel that. Thank you, Shaveena, for the opportunity. And thank you, Khushiapa, for asking me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Navneeta Pu. So if it's okay with everybody, we will move on to the reading, because some of the things Navneeta Pu pointed out actually flows very nicely into the reading, the excerpt that I had thought we could go over. So Kamla Bhasin wrote so many books and booklets that were around understanding patriarchy and gender, and she she very, in very accessible language, was able to dissect what was the situation of understanding gender and patriarchy within the South Asian context. So and her books have actually been translated into numerous languages and are used in so many NGOs like across South Asia and even in the world to help people understand these issues. So the first one we will read from is called Understanding Gender. I mean, kind of linked to Diedichi if anybody wants to read the whole book. Do we have any volunteers for first reader? If not, I can start us off.
I see a hand.
Nazmi, I see a hand. Thank you so much, Nazmi. I appreciate that. So far into this book, for some context, she has very nicely laid out here what are the processes in a society. How do we start to gender boys and girls from a very young age? What are the processes of that? And in this chapter, she is speaking about patriarchy. Prathame, she has gone through and kind of explaining how patriarchy is a social structure where it is believed that men are superior. Nazmi, if you could start from normally the following areas. Amar mouse check hanache.
Okay. It is on page 20, right?
21. Amar mouse, can you see on the screen?
Abu, normally, the following areas of women's lives and societies can be said to be under patriarchal control: women's productive or labor power, women's
Do we lose her?
Yes, I think so.
Does this always happen?
No, property and other economic.
Go ahead, Nazmi.
Okay. Property and other economic resources, social, cultural, and political institutions, an analysis of the main institutions in society, the family, religion, law, political, educational, and economic institutions, media, knowledge systems, demonstrate quite clearly that they all are patriarchal in nature and all the pillars of a patriarchal structure. This well-knit and deep-rooted system makes patriarchy seem invincible. It also makes it seem natural.
Keep going.
Under patriarchal, different kinds of violence may be used to control and subjugate women, and such violence may even be considered legitimate. In fact, feminists believe that violence against women is not just pervasive, it is systematic in patriarchies. All this does not imply that women are totally powerless or without rights, influence, and resources under patriarchy. In fact, no equal system can continue without the participation of the oppressed, some of whom derive some benefits from it. This is true of patriarchies as well. Women have risen to power, have occasionally been in control, have vested benefits in greater or smaller measure. But all this does not change the fact that the system is male-dominated. Women are mainly accommodated in it in a variety of ways. To give a parallel example, in a capitalist economy, workers play a very important role. They may even participate in management to some extent, but this does not mean they are even in control. For a variety of complex reasons, women also support and perpetuate patriarchy. Most of us have internalized in values and are not always free of patriarchal ideology. In order to retain their privilege, women continually renegotiate their bargaining power, so to speak, sometimes at the cost of other women. But it is important that we look at the overall system and analyze the reasons for this complicity. It is true that women often treat their sons better, deprive their daughters of education, restrict their freedom, mistreat daughter-in-law, and so on. All this needs to be understood in the context of the respective power and position that men and women have in the family and in society. A rural woman explained this very well. She said, men in our families are like the sun. They have a light in their own. They have a light in their own. They own resources, are mobile, have the freedom to take decisions, etc. Women are like satellites without any light of their own. They shine only if and when the sun's light touches them. This is why women have to constantly compete with each other for a bigger share of sunlight, because without this light, there is no life. The appropriate way to describe male control over women is paternalistic dominance. This is dominance, but it is paternalistic because women are provided shelter, food, and security, vice outsiders. Paternalistic dominance has oppressive aspects, but it also involves a set of mutual obligations and is frequently not perceived as oppressive. This is what makes it difficult to recognize and fight. How liberating was
me. That was really great reading. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So just again, wanted to open up the floor from what you have read or heard. In your work, does this, what you're reading, does it resonate? Is it showing up in your work? And oneke ekhane jara hoyto kaj korchen, you are working on gender specific, gender equality projects. Does some of this stuff resonate? How are you seeing it in your work? Or even in your lives? And I would love for you all to share, whether it's through stories or analysis or reflections. আমি জানি আমি বেশি ইংলিশে কথা বলছি and the readings are in English, but go ahead, whatever you're comfortable with.
আমি কিছু বলি?
Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Yes, sure.
Okay. No, as you said, in our work, and what we hear about, how patriarchy impacts on men and women both, and that's what she always writes. One thing we hear very often, je merai meder shotru, this shashuri bo, and we find that so common, that narrative. But nobody goes deep into understanding why that is. When women in a way are pressured into behaving like men because of patriarchy, because then they think they can exert more power or exert more authority, that is how they feel empowered. So this whole system of patriarchy impacts so negatively on men and women, and so that women then take on the attributes of men, to feel relevant, to be to feel powerful. And that's what also came out in the writing that we just heard, and also through our work. We have seen in many ways that, another thing we also say, that how patriarchy has a negative impact on men, in the sense that they are made to feel powerful, in control, barir korta, oderke shob daitto nite hobe, and then there's a different kind of pressure on them, and they end up behaving in that very aggressive, authoritative way. So, this is actually our analysis, and this comes out from our day-to-day work with, men, women. And so I just thought I'll just share it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else just want to invite? Does this resonate? Do you disagree? Ji Jahanarba.
It's not just in work. The patriarchy is so intertwined in every aspect of our life. We are all from a pretty privileged background, relatively speaking, I guess. But, even just think about an everyday example, right? If you are out late at night, like I'm saying late at night being 8:30 and you're coming home, there's a fear, right? Like if we are all of a certain age, there's this great pressure, like, oh, you have to find someone, you have to get married to settle down, like, or if you get married, oh, when are you going to have children? If you are like, and then the conversation, like if you are married, it's always, focused on the women, like, oh, how are you balancing motherhood and work, right? Like we are not never really talking in our conversations, like how are men balancing fatherhood and work? So I don't know, I just feel like in every aspect of a life as you lead, that we lead as women, like I just feel like it's a struggle, and in very small and deep ways, and it can be really, really tiring sometimes. So I think that is my perspective.
Thanks so much. Noreen said she wanted to write something, and as she's doing that, something that I've been facing in these conversations around gender, around patriarchy, is that they're quite difficult to have. They don't seem like either men are feeling attacked, or they're like rolling their eyes and trying to make jokes about it, or they just don't want to hear it, right? You feminists are always complaining. I feel like there's an extremely emotional aspect to even having these conversations, which has kind of gotten us stuck at a certain place. So if anybody else wants to add to the conversation, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself, or else I'll move on to the next excerpt. Okay, can we have another volunteer for reading? And thank you, Nazmi, for giving us the courage to get started.
You're welcome.
Arkyo Portache?
I think Rajia Khan.
Razia Khan, thank you so much. So I'm sharing the part that I was talking about. So if anybody is reading along, it's on page 80. Razia, why do gender-related issues evoke such an emotional, even hostile response? যদি ওখান থেকে শুরু করতে পারেন, please. Hello, Razia Khan, শুনতে পারছেন? I don't know if she's facing technical difficulties. Does anybody else want to read? And hopefully we can come back to you, Raziapa.
Okay, I can read if Appa is having a problem.
Yeah, I think I just managed to unmute myself.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, okay. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay. Why do gender-related issues evoke such an emotional, even hostile response? Maria Myers puts it well. She says most men and women try to avoid examining gender relations because they're afraid that if they allow themselves to become aware of the true nature of the man-woman relationship in our societies, then the family, the last island of peace and harmony in the brutal world of money-making, power games, and greed will be destroyed. Moreover, if they allow this issue to enter their consciousness, they will have to admit that they themselves, women and men, are not only victims, women on one side, and villains, men on the other, but that they are also accomplices in the system of exploitation and oppression that binds women and men together. If they wish to come to a truly free human relationship, they will have to give up their complicity. This is not so only for men whose privileges are based on this system, but also for women whose material existence is bound up with it. It is feminists who have dared to break the conspiracy of silence about the oppressive, unequal man-woman relationship and who want to change it. We believe that more and more people now realize that equality between men and women is essential for building just and peaceful relationships within families and communities. Women and men everywhere have to join hands to achieve gender equality and to create a world which is just and peaceful for all.
Thank you so much, Raziappa.
Welcome.
I just want to stop there and reflect on this idea. Why is it so hard for us to, even in our families, in our friend groups, to be talking about gender and patriarchy? And one of the things mentioned in this book is that talking about it forces us to confront we're part of the problem for men and women both. And just wanted to ask here in this group if you have any experience with that, any reflections on that, yeah, through stories or even just a reflection on the reading itself.
Quite, reluctant to jump in. I just ekta kotha boli. I don't want to keep on jumping in, but I just want to say one thing that used to annoy Kamla a lot is when people would say, "Na baba, ami feminist na," and that was when, "Hey, ami nari purush. I believe in equality. Na baba, kintu ami feminist na." So there was a kind of a need to explain, what is meant by feminist. What is a feminist? What is a feminist? Feminist is not something je akash theke ure kothay theke eshe some ekta jontu. It's a person who believes in rights of people, in equality for everyone, men, women, both, who believes in dignity of all people. But somehow that somehow the connotation, the word feminist has very ekhono there's need to unpack it. And Kamla, all throughout, her work, she's tried to unpack, that word, what is feminist? What do we mean by that? And, when you start, why do people feel so uncomfortable talking about patriarchy, talking about feminism, is that there still remains a lot of misconception about what is meant by what we mean when we say I'm a feminist. So there was a need to really say it loud and clear that yes, I'm a feminist. You like me or you don't like me, but I'm a feminist.
Thank you so much. So then, general question to the group. Does anybody here loudly, proudly proclaim yourself as a feminist? You can hit a reaction button here. Raise your hand, thumbs up. See Raziappa, Kushikala, Noreen. Most of us. I mean, everybody. And so to everybody who identifies as feminist, what are these conversations like for you? Have you ever tried to have them with your father, with your cousins, with your male friends in your circle? And এগুলো কেমন যায় আপনাদের জন্য আপনারা যখন চেষ্টা করেন to talk about here gender disparity, inequality? Raziappa, if you want to speak, go ahead.
Right. No, it's very interesting that men especially, they even now, after all this time, after I think a lot has been packed in other places, perhaps not in Bangladesh, they feel very embarrassed to admit that they are feminist, even though I can see they are. You know, I mean, you can see by their actions that they do believe in equality and all that, but they will not admit to being a feminist. Now, I hope my brother is not listening. He's lived abroad. He's lived in Sweden for like 45 years. But, you know, if I say something that strikes him as being slightly sort of like feminist, he'll sort of laugh about it. Oh, my sister is a feminist, as if it's, you know, sort of pigeonholes me. And I'm like, yes, I'm a feminist, but shouldn't you be as well? You know, you've got 3 daughters. And he'll sort of be embarrassed and say, sure. But it's not taken seriously. And I think the real reason, as Shaveena Anam just mentioned, that we are still, there's a lot to be unpacked. We really do not know what feminism means. It's still partly a dirty word, you know, it's partly we're stuck in the 50s with that bra wording or whatnot. So feminists are extremists. They have to be like such and such a person. No, the fact that you think that if a woman is breaking bricks and doing the same amount of work, she should be paid according to that. If you're a professor in a university, you should be paid the same as another male professor. You know, in some universities, it's still not the same. So that concept, I think we have to reach that and accept that equality, what that means. The definition of feminism, I think still is not, people are not aware. It's ignorance primarily. I hate to put it like that. Just my little bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I in fact think that this reluctance to understand feminism and not even bother to really read and understand and get a deeper understanding of it comes from a patriarchal mindset. Beshi, amar to bhaloi achi, and here are just a bunch of troublemakers. So I would love to hear actually any more personal stories of any time you've tried to navigate these conversations. Kat, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it was the brother triggered me because, you know, like as much as, you know, I work for an organization called Her Story, and we publish books about like strong women that do radical things and break new ground and kind of break the way for others. But then if I reflect on my relationship with my brother, who is a lovely young man, but it's just easier for me to do the chores than to wait for him to do them. And it's the same with my mom. So we end up spoiling him and raising him in a way where like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll do it later. But he knows that because his later is so late that it's easier for us to do it. But in the long run, like the damage that we're doing to our family system and then his future relationships with women is really serious. And it's something that I'm learning to kind of like navigate in a way that's not aggressive towards him, but where I don't just end up taking his load on. So that's a personal one.
Thanks for sharing. I think another roadblock we hit as feminists is that there is not one kind of feminist. There is a basic value that we all believe in, but there is feminists of all different kinds, different gender-related work that happens. And I feel Kamla Di kind of writes about that quite beautifully in this next excerpt. Can we have another volunteer to read? Zubeda, thank you so much. Ekdom last page 61, although not all gender experts, if you can start from there.
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Although not all gender experts do so, we believe the following points need to be stressed when talking of gender and development. Differences between men and women's achievements and participation are a result of social constructed gender roles rather than of biological differences. What needs scrutiny and change is not just women, but gender relations and gender divisions of labor. Changing the condition, position, and roles of women requires a corresponding change in the condition, position, and roles of men. The two are interconnected, and there is a relationship of power between them. To change women's position, it is necessary to challenge patriarchal structure and ideologies. Because of gender subordination, women continue to require special attention. Gender relations and hierarchies cannot be studied in isolation. They have to be understood in the context of caste, class, and race, and North-South relations. It is now widely recognized that women must be empowered and that the systems and ideologies which keep them subordinate dismantled. Women must be equal partners in decision making in all institutions and at all levels, and they must be subjects, not objects, or just beneficiaries of development policies and programs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Subeda.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So yeah, would love to hear from the group here in terms of any work that you're doing currently. How do these lines resonate with you? This idea that women have to be empowered and that the systems that keep them subordinate need to be dismantled. They must be equal partners in decision making. Bangladesh, we're not quite there yet. But how have you seen this maybe change over the last few years? What is any experiences you might have on it? And do you agree with the points put down here? If any of you are reading along, it was on page 62. We have a couple of hands up, Akramul Momin and then Kushika.
Yeah, actually I agree কারণ আমার যেটা মনে হয় যে বাংলাদেশে এখনো মানে আমি যেখানে থাকি এখানে most of the women got married I think after passing SSC or মানে বিশেষ করে কোভিড এর টাইমটাই দেখছি যে আমি পার্সোনালি অনেক স্ট্রাগল করতেছি আমার যে ভাগ্নি তাকে একটা মানে স্বাবলম্বী নারী হিসেবে দেখতে বা একজন স্বনির্ভর নারী হিসেবে দেখতে বাট আমার আদার ফ্যামিলি মেম্বার তারা জাস্ট মানে এখন থেকেই যে বিভিন্ন বিয়ে সম্বন্ধ নিয়ে আসতেছে সো নারীদের উপর একটা এক্সট্রা চাপ সবসময় নিয়ে আসা হয় যে তাকে পড়াশোনা করলেও মানে বিয়ে করতে পারে বা বাচ্চা নিয়ে করতে পারে বাট তারা যে একজন মানে নিজের সিদ্ধান্ত অনুযায়ী পড়াশোনা করে একজন স্বনির্ভর মানুষ হয়ে নিজের ইচ্ছায় বিয়ে করতে পারে বা তাদের সংসারটা করতে পারে এই অবস্থাটা খুব নেন আমাদের এখানে আমি প্রায় মানে খুব কম মানে 1% এরও কম নারীদেরকে দেখি যারা ফাইনালি একটা মানে স্বনির্ভর লাইফ লিড করতে পারে বা নিজের সিদ্ধান্ত অনুযায়ী বাঁচতে পারে তাদের অ্যাকচুয়ালি এখন পর্যন্ত তাদের হাজবেন্ডের উপর নির্ভর করতে হয় প্রত্যেকটা কাজ করতে এবং still male are in dominating position so they have no freedom here so আমার মনে হয় যে এটা মানে বলার অপেক্ষা রাখে না and women must be মানে should be and must be empowered.
Thank you. Kushika কিছু বলতে চাচ্ছিলেন?
Sorry, শোনা যাচ্ছে?
Go ahead.
What I was trying to say যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম, I work a lot at the rural area with rural communities, and that's been the basis and the strength and the backbone of my work for over 4 decades, actually 4.5 decades. Now, I have found that over the years, there is a natural, which Kamla in her book has written very clearly, which we'll be discussing very clearly. Natural, I meant not natural as being in nature, but natural in the way the society has structured and made us believe that there is a division in the role women and men have, in the kind of what a woman is supposed to do, what a man is supposed to do, what is expected from a woman and what is expected from a man. But since we started with our landless peasants of the poorest and the most marginalized and excluded communities in remote and very, I would say, remote and very conservative rural areas, like places like Noakhali, places like Shondi, places like Lokhipur, and other places I would say which are conservative but not as conservative as we all know Noakhali, etc. are. Even there, we find that now these people that we begun to work with and have discussions with, we've had women discuss with the men talking about how they feel. Very often when women say they do not accept the kind of behavior, the language, or even the kind of slaps which is considered as normal that one gives to a wife, is that something that they do not accept? I have seen certain men's faces change, their eyes change. I have seen that where men have begun to accept women in leadership roles in some of the areas. I won't say it's like the whole village that we work with has accepted it, but in that village, the 50 to 60% of the population have accepted these women and accept them as, the leaders of the shalish, the judges who are giving the shalish in the villages. So I find that is very positive, that there is a change in, we have a system of finding out what work do you do in the house? Do you wash your wife's clothes? Do you, looking after children, etc., cooking, etc. But washing your wife's clothes is a no-no. But that some are beginning to say, yes, we are beginning to do that. We're sharing. So that sharing is happening. It's not, so it gives me hope that there is hope for change. What disappoints me is that the more educated and more established you get, the more both the men and the women are resistant to accepting these changes. And I think for women, it is very often the feel of insecurity. Would I lose my place in society if I move out and change? And for the men, I think they also feel it's again a sense of insecurity, as Kamla often points out. But I just wanted to share that it is possible, and we have tried to do it with many of the people we work with, and we find that so it's taken 4.5 decades, right? It's not like it happened overnight, but it's happening. So that's the positive thing I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Kushikala, because our Onik Shomai Amra newspaper statistics reports it kind of feels like kichui hoy nai etodine. So that change is gradual and that it has been happening. Thank you for sharing those little stories of hope with us as well. And yeah, that the places that we get stuck at are when we see change as that we're going to lose parts of ourselves or lose some of our power. That's where we start to resist it. So thank you for that reminder, because I think everybody does that in a sense, right? I just wanted to invite, we will be moving on from this book. I linked it kind of I do recommend that you all read it. It's really really wonderful, very easy to understand, as you can see. So do go ahead and read it, or else we'll be moving on to the next one, unless anybody wants to say anything about it now. Any last reflections on understanding gender?
Small announcement that we are all trying to translate most of Kamla's books into Bangla and publish it. So hopefully in another year or two, you'll find those for whom English may be difficult, we will do it in Bangla. So that's all to her, yeah.
So Kamla Di, really, she was a big advocate of this community mobilization and collective action, but ensuring that it's inclusive. So that's why so much of her work was centered around slogans, creating posters and plays, non-literary methods, really, so that anybody, people of all kinds of backgrounds, whether they've had education or not, are able to understand and access and internalize these messages. She really recognized the need for humor, for creativity, and really using love and fun as a tool for change. So there's this one book of hers that I recognize used to be lying around in my house as well. It was called Laughing Matters. I don't know if some of you've seen it as well, but it's a book of jokes. It's a book of a mixture of kind of, and not just from India or from the region, but from all over the world. So this is one of my favorites. Feminist logic. People call me a feminist every time I refuse to be a doormat. So I really like that. It's like anytime I'm not allowing somebody to take advantage of me, I'm being a feminist. And so আমি এটারও link share করে দিচ্ছি এখানে. And yeah, I wanted to ask this group, অনেকে বলে feminists are not funny. And that you can't, that this is all very serious, this is all very angry work, but would love to invite any reflections from the group on the use of creativity, on the use of humor in creating change. আপনাদের কোনো যদি experience হয়ে থাকে, please share them, or just what do you think of the idea? I mean, share করে থাকলে I can't see people's hands properly. So Nabunita Apu, did you want to share something?
Shaveena, I don't know, whether I should take more time, but, I just felt like sharing that, when we read from the book that she said that dismantling the, gender hierarchy is, she talked about that. I think Kamla deeply believed in that it's a revolution that we are waiting for, we are working towards. And, a service of a feminist is a lifelong, lifelong service. Maybe you or me in our lifetime won't see the change, but, the gradual change we will see will be our achievements, as Khushiapa said. And she always spoke about, as dearly as she loved Abid Bhai, as dearly as she was close to Bragg, she always thought that, we coming to work in big organizations, taking big rooms in big buildings, big with big designations, and then planning and designing, different programs for the community. That is not how, a revolution can be planned, because she always thought all gender work has to be revolutionary in some way or other, so that it is very important that, she spoke at length about Khushiapa's work, that how much time Khushiapa spent at the South with the community. I knew about that, but I told you that I have seen that through a different lens when Kamla said that, because you work with the community and you know about that, and you know how important and how time consuming and how much involvement you need to make a man start washing the clothes of the wife, as Khushiapa said. And that's when the revolution starts. So, these things, I think she deeply believed in that. And I think she also believed, as much as we talk about engaging men and boys, it is about engaging feminists. It is about engaging feminist women and feminist men, and, making our platform bigger, better, stronger, and, continue our work. Because, it is as she said, it's a famous quote by Kamla Di, it's been shared after her death as well, that she has seen many patriarchal women and many feminist men. So it is about bringing everyone in the platform, and it is a revolution we are working towards, we are working for, and maybe we are, working in an NGO, not in a political party, not in a, feminist movement, but whenever we are working for women empowerment, equality, we always should keep that in mind, that the progress will be slow, but we should keep in mind that it is steady, and it's we are seeing the gradual change, and we are not losing the sight of the intersectionality. We are not losing the sight of the challenges of the different communities, and we go back to the community as much as we can, and we learn from that. So we, those stories will be precious, to learn and hear as much as we can from Kushiapa and, from all those people who worked in the community and brought those changes. I think those are precious stories.
Thanks so much, Naveen Papu. If anybody else also wants to share just their use of, say, humor, art, creativity in the work of changing mindsets, whether it's for children or older groups. I know Jalpuri, her story does a little bit of that. Yeah, go ahead, Kat.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a character from one of her stories, Nawab Faizanessa, who wrote this like epic fairy tale about polygamy and about her own experience with her husband who took another wife. And it kind of inspired her to write this epic fairy tale where the protagonist is this prince, and we follow him throughout this like absurd journey where he's constantly being kidnapped by strange giants and fairy queens, and he's pathetic in like so many ways, but it's written with such humor and such wit, and the criticism is so subtle that it's really, really enjoyable. So anyone who actually is interested, I have a very precious PDF.
Yeah, আমি এই যে joke বইয়ের লিংকটা এখানে শেয়ার করে দিয়েছি. Do click on it and open it up and have a look through them. Some of them are just light and funny, but some of them are extremely profound. So do just take some time to go through them and share them with other people if you'd like. I feel sometimes the conversations around feminism and gender khub niche chota chota jagay hai, so sometimes in more elite circles or maybe just really amongst women. So I really appreciate in the way Kamla Di, for her it was so important that she changes the way she communicates, or she understands a community jekhane oder sathe kotha bolte jacche, to understand them and speak not in a way that is patronizing, ami tomake shikhate eshechi, but to be inclusive in the way they're teaching, that we're learning from each other, and this use of poems, slogans, art, humor. It's really amazing the way she really uses that power to make it accessible for anybody, that it's not, you don't have to be educated at any place to be able to understand these concepts, and that's such an important thing. Ami eta onek shomoy bhule jai. We think, oh, we need to increase literacy, we need to inform, we need to teach. So really, really inspired by that particular approach she takes. If anybody else wants to comment on that, or else we'll move on to the last reading.
I just lighten the atmosphere a bit. I think this is very. So everyone's heard of Gayatri Spivak, right? And how she's a fierce woman, yeah, fierce feminist. But when she and Kamla gets together, they really roll on the ground. And And then they would joke about many little things, something as frivolous. I mean, think of Gayatri Spivak out there with her, the kind of books she writes, which we have difficulty in understanding what she's trying to say. Telling Kamla, tell me what is common between Rabindranath Tagore and the peacock. And Kamla says, what? So she said, both are the national bard of India. I mean, this is the level of jokes that they can get down to, So that if you're a feminist, or if you're something, you don't have your sense of being able to enjoy even trivial things, is something that Kamla used to break down and really bring it to a normal level.
Thanks so much, Kushika. That's really funny. Also, it's funny to think of Gayatri Spivak as telling jokes. Anybody else wants to reflect on that, using humor, jokes, creativity in change making? Cool, then we'll move on to the last reading. Anybody else wants to volunteer for the last reading?
I could read.
Hi, thanks so much, Zaid. So in this last book, Many Notes, One Symphony, it's a very easy to understand book where she talks about diversity and pluralism. And really, I think Kushikala very early on said that one of the gifts that conversations through Kamla that present for you is really understanding the other person, regardless of where you're coming from, wherever your background is. So this book is really a wonderful kind of reading into that. Amra ei part theke porchi. Pluralism protects diversity.
Hi, Zaid. Pluralism protects diversity. As we said earlier, it is not enough to accept diversity. We need to understand and promote pluralism. Merely accepting diversity does not give birth to pluralism. Actively appreciating, engaging with, and protecting plurality is pluralism. According to Diana Eck, professor of comparative religions at Harvard, pluralism is not the sheer effect of plurality alone, but is active engagement with plurality, which is all around us in the form of religious diversity, our cultural proximity to one another, and our human independence. From Diana, encouraging God, a spiritual journey from Bozeman to Penaras, Penguin book. Explaining the differences between plurality and pluralism, she writes, pluralism and plurality are sometimes used as if they were synonymous, but plurality is just diversity, plain and simple, splendid, colorful, may be even threatening. Diversity, however, does not have to affect me. I can observe it. I can even celebrate diversity, as the cliche goes, but I have to participate in pluralism. I can't just stand by and watch. Tolerance of differences and of the other is often lauded and promoted as a solution. But according to Diana Eck, and I agree with her, pluralism is not simply tolerance, it is also the seeking of understanding. She says, tolerance can enable coexistence, but it is certainly no way to be good neighbors. Tolerance does not take us far with ideas that challenge our own. Tolerance is, of course, a step forward from active hostility. Tolerance alone does nothing to remove our ignorance of one another by building bridges of exchange and dialogue. Tolerance does not require us to know anything new. Tolerance might sustain a temporary and shaky truth, but it will never bring forth a new creation. Pluralism, therefore, is a belief in and respect of plurality. It is a commitment to protect and promote plurality. Pluralism is the belief that just as the meeting of rivers creates holy sangams, the coming together of different religious communities creates beautiful communities. Pluralism is the belief that conflicts in the name of religion are anti-religious. Religion can and should only mean compassion, inclusion, and love. Thanks.
Thank you. So she says here, just shohjo kora, just tolerance is not enough, right? It's also genuinely, authentically actively trying to understand the other. And whether it's understanding ethnic, religious minorities, people of other countries and nationalities, it's just as important in breaking down what are hierarchies in gender as well. Men and women need to be able to understand each other better. So also just want to open any reflections on that. What can we do to understand each other better? Or any reflections on this idea of pluralism? And if anybody feels like, Aro, you need to examine, read, or even ask questions, go ahead as well. অনেকের কাছ থেকে শুনি নাই কিছু এখনো, so if anybody would like to add to the conversation, say anything.
So I would like to just to know that filmmaker Ritu Porno Ghosh used to say they believe in womanhood, not in feminism. So do you know the term or what it means by womanhood or feminism? What is the differences or similarities between them?
Anybody want to comment? বা আকরামুল মোমেন, আপনি শুনে ওটা কি মনে হলো আপনার?
আমার কাছে যেটা মনে হতো যে উইমেনহুড বলতে হয়তো আমরা মানে সকল রূপে যেটাকে আমরা নারীত্ব বলে থাকি, যে নারীদের এক ধরনের স্পেশাল ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিক্স এর কথা হয়তো সে বলে, যেটার মধ্যে একটা ভীষণ মানে কি বলে প্রচন্ড শক্তিশালী একটা জায়গা আছে। ওয়ান কাইন্ড অফ মানে সামটাইমস আমার যেটা মনে হচ্ছে দেবী দুর্গার মধ্যে আমরা যেমন একটা মানে সবকিছুর একটা কি বলে কম্বিনেশন আমরা পাই। সামটাইমস যে দ্রোহ বিদ্রোহ, তার মধ্যে এরকম বিউটি স্ট্যান্ডার্ড নাই, তার মধ্যে প্রচন্ড একটা স্ট্রাগল আছে, তার মধ্যে পেট্রিয়ার্কির এগেনস্ট একটা মানে জার্নি আছে। সো সামটাইমস মেবি এটা, বাট আমার মনে হয় যে ওইখানে কিছু কিছু জায়গা থাকে যে ফেমিনিজম বা ফেমিনিস্ট বলতে আমরা অনেক সময় যে মানে একটা টেবু ওয়ার্ডের মতো এটাকে বিলিভ করি, হয়তো বা সে ওই জায়গাটা চায় নাই, যেহেতু ঋতুপর্ণ ঘোষ একজন পরিচিত এবং ফেমাস ফিল্ম মেকার, তার হয়তো ইন জেনারেল অ্যাকসেপ্টেন্সের জন্য উইমেনহুড শব্দটাতে যাওয়াটা বেশি দরকার ছিল। যেমন আমরা এখন জার্মানির যে মানে কি বলে চ্যান্সেলর মার্কেলকে আমরা অনেক পরে এসে দেখি যে সে নিজেকে ক্লিয়ারলি বলছে না, বাট সে বলছে যে সে বিলিভস ইন মানে ফেমিনিজম, বাট এটা এডমিট করতে সে অনেক টাইম নিয়েছে। সো আমার মনে হয় যে ওই কনফিউশনটা অনেকের মধ্যে থাকে যে সে ফেমিনিজম বা ফেমিনিস্ট এই শব্দটি ইউজ করবে না, রেদার সে নতুন কোনো শব্দ ইউজ করবে। আই থিঙ্ক এটা মেবি এই ধরনের একটা কনফ্লিক্ট, যেটা হয়তো তার যেহেতু একটা মানে মাস কমিউনিটির সাথে মানে ইনভলভমেন্ট ছিল, তার হয়তো অ্যাকসেপ্টেন্সের জন্য এমন কোনো শব্দ মানে দরকার ছিল। বাট তার ফিল্মে কিন্তু আমরা প্রচুর প্রতিবাদী নারীদের দেখি, বা কি বলে স্রোতের বা হচ্ছে কি বলে প্রচলিত ধারার এগেনস্টে কথা বলে এমন নারীদের দেখি।
Gee, thank you. Actually, it's a tricky thing, Daina, in the ways that we have to navigate just, you know, the power dynamics, gender dynamics. It's complicated and it's complex. Are often shabdo ব্যবহার করি, just even the language is often very gendered. And so I think everybody is on their own journey of understanding what does it mean? I mean, ki বিশ্বাস করি. Kushiapa, did you want to add something?
So this thing, I just wanted to say, one of Sangat, this organization she founded, one of the biggest and the strongest takeaway for most of us in South Asia, definitely in Bangladesh, but is the month-long course we do every year. So every year we have a month-long course where we talk about concepts and theory and feminism, and it's a whole range where we also bring in creativity, we bring in films, we bring in songs, we bring in everything. And you know, we also have sessions on how our language is gendered and what it teaches us. Now, I just wanted to say that it is not only a certain class that comes here. It's not the elite class who comes here. A lot of women who come to these courses are from very middle-class backgrounds who have not heard the word feminism before too. And yet this 1 month together, they don't reject it. We have also started 2 country courses in different languages. In Bangla, we have West Bengal and Bangladesh meet together for 15 days. And there we have it in Bangla, where we have very many people from rural, working in rural areas also taking part. And I have not seen that people who have not been exposed first to this feminism or patriarchy have gone back rejecting it totally or resisting it totally. It's how you do it. Are you giving space? Are you opening up space so that people are able to understand what it is that is being said, rather than just rejecting a word for the word to say? So I just wanted to say that it is possible to use such words, and it is important to use these words to make it normal, you know, because if we start fearing that if we use a word because the mainstream agenda does not like this, it will remain in the margins forever. If you start using it and making it normal, it will get used more and more. And that is, I think, something that Kamla believed in very strongly and wanted to use. I mean, sometimes she'd say things like, those who've heard her on the Satyamev Jayate thing with Amir Khan, you know, how she talks about who's given, you know, why have you put your honor in my vagina? I didn't give you my vagina to put your honor in. I mean, nobody else could get away with saying something like this. But Kamla gets away with it, and she had the audience all clapping and men in the audience clapping, because, you know, it's the way she said it, and the way it's not an aggressive way of saying it. It's saying it in a very natural and a normal kind of way. So I think even the word feminism is something that, or even different concepts, words. I just wanted to say that for Kamla, it was really important that we start getting used to certain words and concepts without rejecting it because certain people are wanting us to reject it. Sorry for intruding or interrupting.
No, that's great. And I think that's a very important reminder as well, Jay. We shouldn't shy away just because there is a fear of rejection. Aruba, Adil, কিছু বলতে চাচ্ছিলেন?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So what Tasnim Apua just said, the quote, that's basically what this reading reminded me of. I think this is one of her most famous quotes about why the victim's honor is at stake rather than the rapists. Basically, she said that why did the community put the honor of a community being put in a woman's vagina, and how come? So I think that the philosophy of pluralism is basically, it's a system that recognizes multiple principles, except rather than one ultimate principle. And that kind of reminds me of how national identities kind of translate with feminism, and how Pakistan, if you look at like Pakistani serials and stuff, you can see that if a woman's honor is like equated with the whole family's honor, and her purity is like equated with the whole family's honor, and if she has a love marriage, or if she does something that is considered impure, then the father of the family, his honor is at stake. And this has kind of like translated into Pakistan's economy, because the women empowerment there has been so much lower than in Bangladesh. And you can see that, and you can see how, because of these national identities, and because Pakistan has held on to a woman's purity being attached to the family's honor, they have now paid the price. And as a collective, they continue to pay the price. And I feel that I take pride in my identity as a Bengali woman, especially because it is known that as a part of our culture, including West Bengal, that Ma Kali being so empowered is a reason that in our culture, we kind of respect women. It is kind of ingrained in us. Even though we have sexist values, we still have this respect towards women that is in our culture. And I really, really value that as a part of my identity. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you for joining in the conversation. Any last reflections? Great. So I just wanted to, thank you first of all for this like lively discussion and for participating. So just wanted to again like take a deep breath and just think again about the conversation over the last hour and a half, and about the life and work of Kamla Di. And just wanted to invite everybody to put into the chat any takeaways that you have had from the conversation, or something that you want to do, an action step you want to do this week or the next to actually, dismantle the patriarchy just a little bit. And if you're feeling inspired to just speak, do unmute yourself and speak. But if not, invite you to, I'll put into the chat any takeaways or an action step you'd like to take. Thank you for joining, Navneetapu.
I just want to tell people, if they're interested, on Saturday at 5 o'clock at Robindra Sarovar, we are having a remembrance for Kamla. If anyone wants to join, we'll be very happy.
I'm also sharing here the Because I'm a Girl video that we watched in the beginning. And I can go, a takeaway that I'm having from this conversation is that that I need to be less shy. Onek shomoy I shy away from having the conversations because I think, oh, I'm going to bring everybody down. Everybody's going to think I'm a bad buzz or barbar bishi korchi. And I think I need to not let that stop me from speaking my truth. So that's been my takeaway from the conversation.
My takeaway, can I speak?
Of course.
Yeah, my takeaway is a humor thing, because I have faced a lot of difficulty talking to both men and women when I want to talk about feminism. I've lost a lot of friends, relatives. I kind of don't talk to them very much because they don't like the way I talk about feminism, because I become too serious about it. But then learning this strategy that Kamla is teaching us, to have humor and to, use music and interesting way. I think the strategy is important, how you start the conversation. And that is a good way to educate younger people and also people who are difficult to speak to about feminism. So I think this is a very wonderful takeaway. I think I should read that book that you just gave the link. And that would be something very useful. Thank you for this.
If anybody else would like to speak or put into the chat, any last reflections or takeaways?
Hi, Shaveena Apu. Thank you
Hi.
so much for having this amazing discussion. So yeah, I'm one of those people who you actually described just now. I think multiple times before talking, whether I'm really disrupting the flow or not. So yeah, I was a teacher, a primary school teacher for about 2 years in Chattogram at Kalurghat. So I taught a very underprivileged community, and there I saw that I couldn't make my girls and boys sit together because their parents used to complain about that. And like they were from grade 2 or 3, but I couldn't make them do it. I had to have a lot of parents teacher meetings and make them explain, but no, it didn't work. And if some days I asked the boys to clean the classroom, they used to say, no, it's the girls' work, not ours. So the head teacher used to call me and say, see, don't do this feminist things in the school. People of this community doesn't like it. And yeah, so I had to explain the head teacher that this is what is feminism. Feminism is not like, this is not actually the feminism thing. This is actually basic human rights, that the girls can sit anywhere they want. So like they take feminism as we want the girls to be superior than the boys. We want to prove us superior. They just cannot take this notion that girls and boys can be equal. Everyone can be equal. No, there have to be a leader and some followers. So this is the leader nation and those are the follower nation. So up until this time, the girls were the followers. Now you want to make the men followers? Like, is it the explanation? So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zubair, for your participation today as well. More power to you and more courage to you. Ji, bolen.
Sorry, interrupted. Zaid, আমার একটা takeaway, আমি ভাষা নিয়ে আরো চিন্তা করব। মানে ভাষা বলতে কামলা ভাসিন, তারপর খুশি আন্টি আছেন এখানে, ওনারা যেভাবে মানে শুধু let me try to articulate, শুধু intellectual academic discussions এর না রেখে তার থেকে বেরিয়ে এসে যে ওনাদের যে কাজগুলা, যে একদম সাধারণ মানুষ, একটা ক্লিশে টার্ম, মানে সবার কাছে পৌঁছানোর যে ব্যাপারটা, ওই ভাষাটা নিয়ে আমি চিন্তা করব আরো আজকের এই সেশনের পরে। থ্যাঙ্কস।
Thanks so much. Okay, well, thank you so much for spending the last almost 2 hours all together as a group. Please continue to read, listen, and be inspired by Kamla Bhasin's amazing just mind, you know, and she will live on through all of us and the work that we do. And with that, just concluding, thank you so much, Katrina, for having me, and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Shaveena.
Thank you, Shaveena.
Thank you, Kushikala, for staying the whole time.
Thank you, Kushiapa.
I learned. That's what I said. I did that. But so Shaveena, you were very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Unmute and say bye. Hopefully, সবার সাথে maybe একদিন face to face দেখা হবে.
Yes, hopefully. Bye.
Bye. Shaveena, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. I'm gonna get
Wonderful,
going.
wonderful elder sister.
Yes, it was so interactive, and it was really such a wonderful session. I was really enjoyed a lot.
It's funny, you know, you describe it as elder sister. I'm the youngest in my family, so actually nobody calls me Apu or Appa or Appa. So I enjoyed that a lot.
Great.
Pikachu. All right, Kat. See you soon. I hope.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye
Thanks so
bye.
much.
Take care.
Hi,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.